In my last video, I combined 3 files using Excel VBA. Now in this video, I'm going to do the very same thing, but I'm going to use Power Query. So let me know in the comments which one you think is better. So let's go ahead and get started. If you enjoyed this video, then please click on the like button. And if you'd like to get notified of my upcoming videos, then please click on the subscribe button and the bell icon beside it. Let's look at the task we're going to complete in this video. So we're doing the same as we did in the last video, except in this video we're using Power Query instead of VBA. So we've got 3 sales files here, one for Australia, one for UK and one for USA. They've all got data in it that looks like this. So what we want to do is we want to create one report that combines all the data. So it basically just appends all the data on top of each other and it looks like this. Now the second thing we want to do is the same report, but we want to remove the name column because removing columns in VBA was a bit tricky, so we want to see how we can do it in Power Query. And the final thing that we want to do is we want to create a report where we're grouping by items and the amount of sales per item. So now that we know what we're going to do, let's go ahead and get started. So we can see how Power Query compares to VBA for doing the same task. Now to use Power Query, we go to the Data tab on our ribbon. And then we go to the Get and Transform Data section. And under this, we're going to select Get Data. And we select From File. And because we're getting multiple files, we select From Folder. Now I'm going to use the Sales folder on my C drive. So I just select that and I click on Open. And this brings us up a list of the files, basically a preview. Now I'm going to just click on Load here so we can just see how it loads it to our worksheet. So I've clicked on Load and it's brought it all back to our worksheet. So this is a basic query and how it works with Power Query. Now if we want to edit, we right click on Sales and select Edit. And this opens up the Power Query Editor. Now the first thing we want to do is filter out the files that we don't need. And we can do this like we're using Excel. We just click at the top here and we just filter out the text. So the ones that end with .txt. And you can see it removed that file and you can see we've got a new step under Applied Steps. Now the next one we want to do is we want to do a text filter, so we want all the files that begin with the word sales. And again, this is very similar to how we use filters in Excel itself. We click on OK, you can see it's added a second applied step and it's filtered out all the file names we didn't want. So now what we want to do is we want to combine all these files and we simply click on the Combine Files icon at the top of the content folder. Now this asks us to select a worksheet and we select the worksheet, which is August, and you can see the preview. And then we click OK. And after a few moments, what you'll see is that this has added a lot of new steps. And in our preview, we can see a list of all the data. And we can also see on the left-hand side a list which has the file name where the data came from. So now if we click on Close and Load, what you'll see is that it loaded all that data into our worksheet. So we've already got all the data and combined it quite easily. So if you want to format the sales and have it as a currency, we select it here and then we just format the cells as we would normally. We select English US for the United States and we just get rid of the extra places after the decimal. And so that's our data. Now we want to make one more change to our query. So we go down again to sales and we select right click. First of all, we'll rename it. I'm going to call it Sales All Columns. And then what we're going to do is we want to replace the source name with the country name. So I'm going to edit the Power Query again. So back in the Power Query Editor, we just want to extract Australia, for example. And what we do here is we right click and we select Split. So I'm going to split the column by delimiter. And the delimiter is the space. And I'm going to say the rightmost delimiters and I click OK. And now you can see that it's just given us back the country name and the extension. So we can split it again to get rid of the extension. And this time it automatically gives us back the delimiter to be the full stop. Again, I'm going to do the rightmost one and we'll click on OK. So now that we have what we want, we'll just rename this to country. And now what we want to do is we want to remove any columns that we don't need. So we essentially select the columns that we do need. So these are the columns we're going to use. Select them all by holding down Control and clicking. And then we right click and select Remove Other Columns. And you can see now we have all the columns that we want and we have the country formatted correctly. Now if we click on Advanced Editor, we can see the actual M code. So this is the M language, and if this is simply text, and if we copy and pasted this to another Power Query, it would work exactly as our current one does. So let's click on Close and Load, and this loads our final result into our worksheet. So you can see we've got the country, date, name, and sales as we wanted. Now if we want to remove one of the columns, it's quite easy to do. We're just going to simply edit this query, and all we've got to do is select the step that we did already where we removed the other columns. And if you see the wheel at the side, like for settings, we'll just click on that wheel, and this brings us up the names of the columns. So the one we want to remove is name, so we'll just uncheck that and we click OK. And now we have the columns we need, and we do close and load. So you can see it's much simpler than in VBA to manipulate or select the columns that we want. Now we want to return the total for each product. And so what I've done is I've taken the previous query that we've had and we've just removed the final steps. So we've got the steps all up to where we return the data in the files. And what I do here is I'm going to remove the column source name because we don't need the country this time because we're doing the overall total. And the expanded table, then you can see all the records from the table, but now it doesn't have country. So what we do is we select name and we select group by. So we're going to group by name, and we want to sum something. We want to make a sum of all the values in sales. So we're going to call this one total. The operation is going to be sum, and the column it's going to sum is going to be sales. When we click OK here, you can see that we've got each product and the total amount for sales for that product. Now if we want to sort, we do it just like we would with an Excel table. We click on the filter button and we do sort descending. And you can see that it's already sorted all the totals. Now when we click close and load, you can see that it writes it back to a new worksheet. And now we're going to format our totals as a currency. So we format them using US dollars with no decimal places. So this is how we group the items and their totals. Let me know in the comments if you would prefer VBA or Power Query for grouping the data. Now if we want to refresh all the queries in our workbook, we can simply go to the Data tab and select Refresh All, and this will refresh all our queries. Now if we wanted to go to an individual one, we can just right click and select Refresh, and this will automatically refresh our query. Now what we're going to do now is we're going to add a button, and we're going to use VBA to refresh our query. So how we do this is we go to Developer and we select Insert and the leftmost item, and then we draw that on our worksheet. Now we cancel the Assign Macro dialog, we'll assign it a bit later, and we'll just put the caption on our button, and the caption is just going to be sales. So now we go to the Visual Basic Editor, that's Alt F11, and what we want to do is we want to add a module. So we right click, Insert Module, and we're going to call this mod Click Events. And this is where all our button clicks will take place. So we call our sub public sub, and it's going to be sales underscore click. And what we use then is this workbook. So we say this workbook, and we say dot connections, and then we put in the name of the connection. But before the connection, we put query dash. Now I'm going to switch back to the worksheet. And if we right click on our query, I'm going to select rename, and that allows me to copy the text of the name. And so I paste that, and now we have our connections name, and all we've got to do is say refresh, and this will refresh our connection. Now after we refresh the connection, what we want to do is activate the worksheet, so I just use the sheet name and activate. So this is the code name of the worksheet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the data in our existing table so that we can see that our query worked. So it's just an easy way to demonstrate that the query worked correctly, or that it refreshed correctly. So we go to the dashboard, we right click on our button and we select Assign Macro. Now I've only one macro, so we double click on this macro, and now when we click on the button, it refreshes our query, and you can see that it brought back all the data that we were expecting. So that's how we can use a button or any other event that we want in VBA to refresh our query. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see more content about Power Query. Now if you enjoyed the video, please click on the like button, and if you'd like to get notified of my upcoming videos, then click on the subscribe button and the bell icon beside it. Hope to see you on the next video.